Wednesday, the 24th of February, 1999. The world's media gathered to catch a glimpse of a man under pressure.
I'll give you a warning when he's getting fairly close. Please don't leap out in front of the car. Somebody's liable to get hurt. He'll be sitting in the front near side seat, so you'll get a good picture from here. Yeah. He'll drive down to the end there, get out and walk in. OK?
For 5 months, Sir Paul Condon has refused to accept that the Metropolitan Police are institutionally racist. The judge's verdict has been leaked that they are. Can the Commissioner survive?
Come on, what's going on here? They went forward. Who surged forward?
The report of the judicial inquiry into the murder of the black teenager Stephen Lawrence in south-east London will be published this afternoon. The Home Secretary, Jack Straw, will make a common statement. Sir William Macpherson's report is expected to contain devastating criticism of the Metropolitan Police. Leaked extracts of the weekend suggested a conclusion that racism in the force had been a key factor in the failure of the police investigation into the murder 6 years ago. Much attention will now be focused on the response of the Commissioner, Sir Paul Condon.
With us in the studio is Assistant Commissioner Dennis O'Connor of the Metropolitan Police. Can I turn, first of all, Assistant Commissioner, to the question of the Commissioner himself? Can he command the public confidence that's necessary in those circumstances?
Well, I think he commands a great deal of public confidence because the public see him as a decent, honourable man. And this issue has become personal for him, not just business. He bears the scars, and he has launched an unparalleled programme of change. And in my view, it would be completely wrong. We'd lose momentum if we lost the Commissioner. Let's let him stay and see this programme through.
Well, in the studio with us is Lee Jasper, who's director of a think tank that looks at issues that affect the black community. And everyone's running around saying something will be done, something will be done. Do you think something will be done?
I think something will have to be done. Whether or not it actually meets the challenge that is laid out within this report, we'll have to wait and see.
Lee Jasper is a leading black community activist and critic of the police. He knows Dennis O'Connor well from the time they both worked on the Notting Hill Carnival.
He and I used to tango at Notting Hill, meeting every hour on the hour goal. But it worked, didn't it? It kept the peace, and it's success ever since. What was the name of the big guy who used to carry the piece of sugar cane? Ron. Big Ron. Big Ron. And do you remember when the people from Epsom wanted to arrest him for big mistake, having an offensive weapon? He's got a piece of sugar cane which he starts off that big in the morning because he's eating it the whole way. By the time he gets there, he's down to that big, you know. And some officers wanted to arrest him for having an offensive weapon. This thing's a bit of a tradition, this sugar cane thing, you know. And so the whole carnival falls about laughing. They want to arrest him. These officers came from Epsom, and they didn't understand the significance of Big Ron to me because, and so we had this. Well, I'm sure there's a stated case about this. So I said, this inspector, do you see that guy there? He is worth 5 PSUs to me. If I say, Ron, fix, okay, it's fixed. I said, can you deliver that? No, we're sharp then.
El informe acusa a la policía británica de racismo institucional.
The demands of the world's media have been so intense, the Met have seconded extra police and press officers to staff an operations room.
We've doubled the number of racial incidents reported to us. We've doubled the number of people that were arrested, and we're looking at something like 170% improvement in the intelligence that we gather. We've put a lot.
Since 5 a.m., they have been monitoring what is said about the Commissioner's fate.
It would be very wrong that the man who has tried to do most about this should pay the penalty for it.
Schedule of interviews. So when he comes out of the conference room, ITM will be ready to...
Yeah, I'm going to sort of tell people on this list, obviously not the lives, but it really only affects ITM to be ready beforehand and the CROs to be ready, just in case we can get them in earlier.
Are there any obvious ones who are asking that we haven't managed to fit in?
National Commercial Radio, IRN and Talk Radio.
Is there...
Under Met Director of Public Affairs Dick Fedorcio, the team must deal with the many requests for interviews with the Commissioner when he goes public at the end of the day.
Then for 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes,
okay.
Much more than that. Well, they're so desperate, they'll be grateful for 2 minutes.
Okay.
10 people.
10 people? I told them to keep it to a minimum.
Camera, sound, fixer, reporter, engineer, dispatch rider.
Tea lady.
Who's this?
Tea lady, Sky.
Press officer Carol Buick explains they can't all have the Commissioner.
All right, thanks, bye. Originally, he wanted an interview with the Commissioner.
If we offered him somebody in place of the Commissioner and he said no and then was asking for somebody else...
We shouldn't be organising the BBC. Tell them to liaise between themselves.
The week before publication, the Commissioner called a series of strategy meetings to plan his response. This team has worked on issues raised by the Lawrence case since last August, before the inquiry began. Assistant Commissioner Dennis O'Connor has developed a strategy to improve the recruitment, training, and the attitudes and behaviour of officers towards ethnic minorities. Deputy Assistant Commissioner John Grieve heads a team of detectives to improve the handling of intelligence, detection and arrests for racial and violent crimes. Superintendents Sarah Thornton and Heather Valentine run the Lawrence Inquiry Response Team. The core issue is simple. The Commissioner accepted there were racists in the Met, but he resisted the term institutional racism. He believed it labelled all 26,000 officers. Now he must accept the report, which is expected to include a new definition of institutional racism. But can he avoid the humiliation of retracting his earlier words? His credibility is at stake.
I and we have challenged some of the definitions of institutional racism. I have written to the judge and invited him to give us clarity, to give us a rallying point for inspiration around dealing with racism. I'm hoping that that will emerge from the report. If it doesn't, we are left with some vagueness around institutional racism. It's how do we deal with that on the day? If the only way of dealing with it on the day is to get back into defensive definitions, I would feel uncomfortable with that.
Well,
the message has got to be: we are acknowledging racism. We are addressing it. This is what we've done so far. This is what we're doing even more of as a result of the report.
We need help to move forward.
Why didn't we say that before?
The reason you didn't say it before was to make some of the challenges and complexities in this obvious to all and sundry, and that's happened because there's been a big public debate around it. Next.
Yeah, I think it'll be more than next.
I think there'll be a shift towards. I think you can engineer a shift towards behaviour, and about what does this mean, and a list of things, not just our list of successes, but some new things to do for the future. I think you can answer with behaviour.
The story on the day will be: you said they were not racist. You've been found racist. What are you going to do with the rest of your life?
If that's your big concern,
You said you were racist.
if that's your big concern,
You did.
I'm not racist, John.
Sometimes we are. Sometimes we are. You said racist.
This is what I said.
Racists. Yeah. Some downright discriminatory policy. You said all those things, but you also said, give us some guidance about the way that you're using the word institutional in 15 different ways.
And we're not going to get that.
The symbolic issue.
There's a catch-22, which is unless we seek definition or limitation on the day, there is real grief downstream.
Yeah.
But if we seek definition and clarification on
You
the
see,
day, we're into grudging acceptance.
You see, we're only the thick police, aren't we, or whatever if you want to be like that about it. Police need help. This is the government have already said this is a bigger issue than the police.
Yes.
I'm not sure how we can maintain the current line given a finding of institutional racism. I don't know.
Not systematic.
But I also think that to try and deflect onto the rest of society will unravel.
Yeah.
And that would be my fear with the
Yes.
line that you're suggesting.
Yeah.
And that it will sound either grudging or in denial. And that's the difficulty with it.
Yeah.
And that then becomes the focus. Yeah, Met guilty of racism and still arguing about it, rather than Met guilty of racism and they've got a plan to move on.
Summarise again. Summarise in no more than 3 or 4 sentences, if possible.
You acknowledged the issue on the day. You plead guilty, if you like, to the issue of racism on the day. You know, if you really want to summarise, the issue is how we move on. But that's in one sentence.
Now live from our Central London studio is Lee Jasper, who's been a leading force behind the Lawrence inquiry. A very good morning to you. I understand that you want Sir Paul Condon removed from his post if he won't resign?
I think that the failure to deliver equitable service to the black community in London is one which is commensurate with resignation.
Come on, Lee.
You must remember that Sir Paul Condon refuted that racism played any part in the murder investigation surrounding the death of Stephen Lawrence. That is surely now an untenable position. And as such, and that was in his analysis and view at the time, one can see no other course of action open to him but to resign. And if he doesn't, he will quickly become a lazy...
Is there anybody who's watching this and deciding whether we should offer up some alternative viewpoint? Lee is getting full rein here on sack the Commissioner. I just wonder whether we ought to offer John or somebody up to address that issue about getting rid of the Commissioner and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
if Lee is able to sit in there and talk
I'm happy to offer either of you up if either of you are available.
In remaining in position, we need to draw a line in the sand on this one and have a fresh start, and that will need a fresh commissioner for London.
All right, that's great. Yeah, that'd be fantastic if we could. Can we do it when our camera?
We have to do it very quickly.
Yeah.
We have to be realistically got to be out of here in 5 minutes. 10 minutes.
We've got a Sky crew turned up in reception, which we weren't expecting, so we've managed to grab Dennis O'Connor to an interview in the lift lobby.
Mr. O'Connor, what do you think of calls for Sir Paul Condon's resignation?
At very best, they're well intended, but I think they missed the real picture. Stephen Lawrence happened on the Commissioner's watch. He's made it his mission to put everything right that went wrong, and he's already introduced an enormous, unparalleled programme of change.
How about if it was a symbolic gesture, a show of his feeling of, I don't know, regret in a way for what's happened and how it's been handled?
He has said himself, if there was any question around his honour, that he would be, in those circumstances, happy to draw a line under it. But that what Londoners want, including ethnic minority Londoners, is not symbolism. They want action. They want things to improve, and they are improving.
While his colleagues take on the media, the Commissioner remains in his office working on his statement to the troops and the press. He will not respond publicly until after the Home Secretary has spoken in the House. Despite media pressure, it is the Home Secretary who holds the key to the Commissioner's job.
Who says we're ashamed? It's not me, is it? Is that me on the billboards?
I think it probably is.
Go up out and get a
John Grieve and his press officer Carol Buick are off to Bush House to be interviewed by the BBC World Service.
It is you.
They are naughty, you know. That's just... Did they put anything else in?
Simon.
Sorry.
Lawrence 5 have skipped to Spain yesterday.
Yeah. They've gone there. They've gone to there to avoid a perjury charge, maybe today, if they think that's coming. In any case, that's fine by me, because we can get on with the investigation now. And it's not too hard to get them back.
John Grieve's previous job was as head of the Met's anti-terrorist squad.
This is the scene of one of my other little adventures. When a bus disappeared in a puff of smoke, taking out a bit of the City Bank for the second time in a month.
Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, John Grieve, who heads the Race and Violent Crime Task Force. John Grieve, the first question is obvious. Is there institutionalised racism in your police force?
Well, it appears that Sir William will find us guilty, but he has redefined it. We've got a new and demanding definition which uses such words as unwitting, through ignorance, thoughtlessness and stereotyping. This is a new version of institutional racism, and of course we bow our heads to Sir William's judgment.
I mean, this is quite a political issue in this country at the moment, the extent to which senior officers in the police, like yourself, do accept the definition of the problem. It sounds to me as if you do.
Yeah, it's about moving forward now, isn't it? If it was unwitting before, it can't be unwitting now. We're now knowledgeable about it. If we were ignorant before, we've got to develop new wisdom. If we were thoughtless before, we've got to be thoughtful and caring. And if this is around stereotyping, then we have to deal with people according to their needs.
Well, I hope you were listening to the World Service of the BBC. And the rest of the
well, we was going to tune in, but he doesn't think it went out on the radio.
Yeah, World Service.
But they were so impressed with him that
they've asked him back.
No, they stretched out. He was due to have 2.5 minutes or something. They were so impressed that they cut a package to let the interview run on.
Because I was rambling on as usual.
He was going on and on and on. He just wouldn't stop.
So, how many have we done, Carol? How many have we done? We done GMTV twice.
The News Hour, GMTV. We did Sky. We did IRN. We did Capital. We did a pre-record Sky as well as the live Sky. We did the World Service, and
is that 6? That's 6.
That's 7.
Oh, look at what's this one.
Oh, it's the lorry drivers.
It's the lorry drivers. Yeah, we saw them interviewed as well.
Gosh, they have names.
Oh, look, they're very well behaved.
I used to go on CND marches when I was a teenager. I think that's why it took so long to vet me.
Oh no! Now you tell it.
Well, I'm a lefty.
I was in the CND as well.
Were you?
I was.
I used to hand out daffodils at the marches.
Was that before or after the purple punk? I just want to get that on the record.
Before
or after the purple punk?
Okay. I'm mature and sensible now. Honest.
Oh look, they're not very used. I tell you, these are not regular demonstrators. You can see they haven't got the thing. They aren't attacking the police, throwing their banners at anything.
Where are the police?
The police themselves are the other audience whose reactions concerned the Commissioner's strategy meetings in the run-up to the day.
There is also an audience, which is, the men and women have got to do this job an hour later and 2 hours later and the following day. Hopefully they understand the position we've got to at this stage, where they have their commissioner talking openly about racism and the challenge, and we are addressing it, and we have a reform programme. They also believe their commissioner has defended them against the worst excesses of some of the accusations, which in essence is, you lot are racist most of the time. And they need to understand what the position is on the day so they can actually go out and do their job, and the following day, and the following day. I am not prepared to sell them out in a way that they go out that evening thinking their commissioner has sold them out just to save his own position or to get the Med off a hook.
I think they will understand. The fact that you're effectively a human bridge between a new world and the old world.
So the internal briefing has got to be one that makes people realise this is real world, this is right, this is moral, this is public interest, this is pragmatic, this is how the world must look post this inquiry.
I've got a great quote from Martin Luther King about revolutionary times require new thinking people.
Yeah.
And, they're going to have to grip the new times or not. And I've tried it out with my LCU commanders, and I think they went for it. And they wouldn't beat me up exactly, would they? But I think to tell me if the result was completely crap.
I'm not going off on a different adventure. I was just.
You're going to get a better quote. It's not about pigeons and statues, is it?
Well, I'll give you a Martin Luther King one back. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
I mean, what they will desperately want is to go out the door with some sense of direction.
Like bets.
The Commissioner is heading for Lambeth to share his fate with the top 200 officers of the Met. This will be his first response to the Macpherson Report since it began being leaked some days ago.
Busk my way through those very quickly, John.
Right.
We won't have time for detail on those.
Right, okay.
Bob, it's set up for the back. If you want to come in that way, set up for the back.
Yep, Steve, thank you.
Anything in it, Commissioner, you want me to clarify? I can do it on the phone now before we get there.
I will take those crib notes, John, if I may, too. Just in case I want to add to any of those. What it does, this doesn't give me any of the narrative for things like the next phase or the 5 strands. If you give me that full script, I may have to dip in and out of that.
If I just get it in the right order.
2 minutes.
Just said, no,
It's just traffic. It's London's traffic. I hate it.
Apologies for lateness. About to start cruising, should be here very soon. Just been some minor changes to the script. I don't want to whet your appetite. It's right. We're not going to say, and the new commissioner is. The existing.
To improve behaviour on the street, the Commissioner must persuade senior officers of the need for change. They will have to do the same for the lower ranks across London.
Yeah,
You're going to have to scoot through.
Yes, I'll say a few words before we start.
Yeah.
Then show the video.
Yeah.
Then into it. Make sure that if I'm still going, stop me when we get the live feed.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave after that.
Yeah.
Over to you and.
Yeah, we'll do the questions. So,
Stay where you are, stay where you are, sit down, thank you. Thank you very much. The main message this afternoon is I'm staying and we're changing. And what I want to do over the next 20 minutes or so is try and take you through, hot off the press, Sir William's report, our response to it, my expectations of you, and how we move on from this point. Let me just check with Dennis. From your point of view, we're ready to go with video. You're going to cut me off when the Home Secretary comes.
I have absolute faith in
live.
technology, he said.
I will have to leave immediately after we've taken the Home Secretary live to go and do the press conference, but I wanted you to be the first people to actually receive the message. Okay, can we run the video, please?
A-level student Stephen was stabbed to death here in Eltham by a gang of white youths who shouted racist slogans before they struck.
The ANC leader Nelson Mandela has spent part of the last day of his visit to Britain meeting the family of a black teenager stabbed to death by a gang of whites.
If a black person had committed a murder, they would have arrested him by now.
All I want to know...
Mark, I'll call you back.
All I want to know now is 2 things. I want to know when we're going to get stuff printed back here in our hot little hands. 2, the live feed comes.
Have you asked? Yes. What was 2?
2 was when is the live feed going to come on? Foolproof system, so we know it's going to happen. Excuse me a minute. Mike.
Live feed. How do we get it on?
How do we know when they're go? Right. They have no monitor in there. I'll call you the minute the Home Secretary comes on the television. How will you do it?
Yes, she
on
is.
This.
I've told her to page me.
Mike is just going to get his radio. He'll come back to you. I'll call him when the Home Secretary's coming on.
I've got my radio.
You have? Can you get it?
Yeah, and then we'll do it back to back.
Yes.
Right. You call me, and then you go in and say.
Right. Well done.
What I need you to go back and start telling your people, recognise that the Met not only can move forward, is moving forward, and it will continue to change. Non-negotiable.
Don't want huge debate back into the past. This was unfair, that was unfair. It's an unfair world. Doesn't begin to compete with the unfairness and the tragedy for Neville and Doreen Lawrence. So I don't want to hear whinging around unfairness or we can't move on. This is about getting past the past and moving on in the public interest and in the Met's interest. Accept the challenge in a positive, dignified and professional manner. If our colleagues believe we were doing this grudgingly or reluctantly or through coercion, their sense of us is sufficient. They would know if this was just an act. This is for real. They must believe it's for real. It must be for real.
Oh, but he's doing well, Commissioner. He's a good boy. Go, go.
Flip the switch. He's just coming on now.
Incompetence, we are found guilty. Racism, no deliberate racism, but there was the institutional racism and corruption, not guilty. Going to go live to Parliament?
That my right honourable friend, the Leader of the House, has agreed that there should be a full day's debate upon the report as soon as possible.
Good. Right. Well done. Sorry.
There is no doubt that there were fundamental errors. The investigation was marred by a combination of professional incompetence, by institutional racism, and by a failure of leadership by senior officers. The House will share my sense of shame that the criminal justice system, and the Metropolitan Police in particular, failed the Lawrence family so badly. The Commissioner of the Police, Sir Paul Condon, has asked me to tell the House that he shares that sense of shame too. He has also asked that I should tell the House that as head of the Metropolitan Police Service, he fully accepts the findings of the inquiry, including those which are made relating to him.
I want to get the reports here so we can give people, put a report in their hand. I want to put one in the Commissioner's hand when he goes out of the building. I've left it to Heather. Heather, I want to put one in the Commissioner's hand, so he's got it.
Well, they were supposed to be, they're being brought over from straight from the Home Office to here.
Yeah.
They've been picked up at 3:30.
Who?
I don't know, because Donna's arranged that driver, but a driver's been arranged to pick them up from the Home Office and bring them straight here.
The Home Secretary's speech means the report is about to be released after weeks of speculation and leaks.
What we're saying is, if straw doesn't move on getting rid of things, then we're going to launch a petition.
So if he doesn't resign, basically?
If he doesn't resign, we petition the Queen, because he's by royal appointment, royal warrant.
With the Commissioner not yet available, the media swarm to the Home Office. Everyone gets copies of the report at the same time, at £45 a throw. Despite being the subject of intense criticism, the police have had no preferential treatment or early copies.
Where's Bob? Because Bob's got one.
He's onto it.
Bob?
Bob is on his way here.
Has he got the report with him? Ask him. When he has, I asked him to bring him with him.
On the critical issue of institutional racism, the inquiry's definition is as follows. Institutional racism consists of the collective failure of an organisation to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their colour, culture, or ethnic origin. It can be seen or detected in processes, attitudes and behaviour which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness and racist stereotyping which disadvantage minority ethnic people. And the inquiry found that on this definition, and again I quote, institutional racism exists within both the Metropolitan Police Service and in other police services and other institutions countrywide.
If we don't leave at 10 to nobody's going to start without us, are they? It's the press packet committee there to take the photos. That'll take 5 minutes.
No.
And then 4:15.
But the thinking was to avoid clashing with the Lawrence sitter at 5 o'clock. We didn't want to do that. That's why the press conference was going to be at 4:30.
Yeah, but I don't think that'll hurt the Commissioner. He'll just push everybody else back slightly. Yeah, he's 4:20. I mean, the first interview he's got is 4:25.
Reform is necessary and reform should be pursued. As far as we are concerned, we will do everything to help in that reform process. I emphasise that. What we will not do, however, is to support any generalised attack on the police, who remain, in my view, one of the best services we have in this country, not one of the worst.
Can we turn the sound
Speaker,
off, please?
may I thank the right honourable gentleman?
Thank you again for the warmth of your support. Your encouragement has kept me going through a very difficult time. Now, what I'm looking for all of us to do is to respond to the challenge we've been set by the inquiry, by the Home Secretary, by Norman Fowler. I don't think we could have asked for a fairer response in Parliament to a very difficult report. So go back, yes, with humility, yes, with concern about our failures, but with considerable pride in who you are and who your people are. Vast majority of police officers on the Met are good men and women. We have a great deal to be proud of. Today is the start of a fight back to restore our reputation, our pride, and the confidence of the public. Thank you.
The Commissioner now heads back to New Scotland Yard to face the world's press. He must defend his decision to stay.
Carol, we've still got John Grieve for it, 5:20. That's what he said to me earlier. Yeah, he's free. Yeah, I'm free. Yeah, I can do him in the corner. I can do him in the corner. You're a bit exhausted by the time
I'm exhausted as well as Tim.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Right, quick update. You've got about 3 or 4 demonstrators near the entrance that you'll come in. They're corralled by the foot duty lads. If you bring the car right up to the far gate, far door, to bring them in.
Despite their efforts, the Commissioner has not yet received a copy of the report. It's waiting at the yard.
Yeah, received, Dave, thank you.
Helicopter mode, Mike.
Right, I see.
Over the top.
So where's the board?
Just on the left through the
Yes.
to the double door.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Can you come forward, please? Have you got a copy of the report?
Yes, I know.
Look towards me, please, sir.
Centre, please, sir.
Could you raise your head back here? Thank you. In the left, please. So on page 3 or 5 or something, there's actually a picture of Steve Morris. Is there any chance you can show us that? So down to the floor, thank you. And so you far left again, please.
Your hands on.
A little closer, sir.
Both hands on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, get all that. I'll give you the Commissioner now. Okay. It's Mark from the Lawrence team with the media responses.
Hello, Mark. 5. Hello.
We'll go up
to the 5th floor if you get that.
Pete Wilson at Channel 4 wants to film a rubber stamp.
A rubber stamp? A rubber stamp of what?
Met Police rubber stamp. Once it on camera, somebody stamping something.
Well, get somebody in the office to do that.
In absence of a diversity strategy, who wants?
Saw the demonstration outside when you came in.
No, I missed it. My mind was it
4 people.
was it the SWP placards?
No, different ones, but same message, but
It was not chief constables looking for vacancies.
yes, and 11 of them named in the Times recently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought you were going.
In preparing his response a week earlier, the Commissioner tried to put himself into the minds of the journalists he will face.
This is not about intellect, this is about entertainment.
Okay, it's art, not news.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yeah. What makes it entertainment? What's the story on the day?
Okay.
Met found guilty of racism.
Okay.
Commissioner denied it. Now forced to admit it. However unfair, wrong, that's the territory we're in.
Can we deal with them with the drama of the day?
Yes.
Because that's going to intrude on.
Yes.
Why don't you go?
Yes.
I think a very good quote that was given to Sarah and I from the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People when we were in Washington. It goes something like this. You can only lead from where you've been. People can only lead who've actually been through problems. Some twist on that I think is worth having. You can't lead from where you haven't been.
Only an Irishman could give me that.
Think about it.
In the right word, it could be powerful. It's very right.
And you need to find some powerful words.
Yeah.
So it's what we're about then, around, stay or go, denial. Is it around finding some convincing words? If we're dealing with the art side of it.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I can visualise.
I discount the Irish bit as well.
The correct quote is you can't lead where you haven't been.
I can visualise. I mean, I've been there on other issues. This feeding frenzy where logic, argument, rational debate are just not part of the agenda.
All right.
Let's
deal with the art then.
Yeah. It's. I mean, you're into the drama of the day now. So it's briefing room. Me alone. Up at the front. Packed. The logic and the analysis, all the things we've said so far, will be completely lost to all of that.
Okay.
It will just be lazy, stereotypical. You lot denied you were racist. You've been found guilty of racism. You must go, Commissioner, and you lot are racist.
Do you need to say anything else when I go?
No, I think you can come in and sit down.
Well, are you going to MC the questions and cut it?
Oh, that's the aim.
Yep.
Yeah, I've just repeated it. We're not looking for a lot.
Can you go back in, please?
Okay, you got him. Okay.
Good afternoon. The Home Secretary has now laid the report before Parliament and I am now free to speak. As you know, it's a substantial report with over 70 recommendations. 66 serving and former officers gave evidence to the inquiry over 59 days.
Is he staying? What's he saying?
Yes. I'll have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Answer.
Yes.
You should do
Yes.
a point.
You hesitate. You hesitate.
I'm gonna say-
Didn't say yes quickly enough, Sarah.
I mean, I'm in this position because I think that this is the way that. Well, I think if you're going to stay, this is how it's got to be. Not if, but I mean, this is the way through.
You can say it.
So, well, I cannot. I just worry that if there's any sign of begrudging acceptance or argument or denial, that will play itself out for the next 2 to 3 days, and you'll have a nightmare situation come Friday.
Yeah. Stephen's brutal racist murder has already brought about significant change, and I am determined that the legacy of his tragic and brutal death will be enduring reform in the Metropolitan Police Service. Thank you very much.
Sir Paul, Jeff Bean from Sky News. As the head of a service deemed institutionally racist, however it's defined, wouldn't resignation really have been the only honourable course?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've obviously thought long and hard about these issues. If I had in the report, if anything I had done had been described as dishonest or as malpractice, then I would not have hesitated to leave the service. That was not the case, but I believe I owe it to the Met to see through these difficult changes, and I will do so.
So where does the buck stop?
John Silverman, BBC News. Commissioner, given that you made tackling racism a key priority when you took office in 1993, surely this will be seen largely as a failure of your leadership?
I think that's a very fair question. I believe that we should look at all that's been achieved since 1993 in relation to crime reduction, fight against terrorism, policing of major events. The Metropolitan Police Service, and I in particular, there is an enormous sense of shame at having let down Stephen's family and not dealt with this tragic case as it should have been dealt with. Clearly, there is much still to be done, but as the Home Secretary and others acknowledged in Parliament today, much also has been achieved. Thank you.
You didn't answer the question.
Thank you very much.
When one of your children has been brutally murdered, you are looking for those with power to do something about it. The police have made their position very clear right from the start. They are the authority, and they should not be challenged over their decision or their conduct. Paul Condon has maintained right from the start that his officers acted in a manner and supported.
Colonel Bradford, when he was Commissioner in 1890, lost his arm on a tiger shoot. Came back and carried on as Commissioner.
How's it changed?
Have you got 3 weeks?
Which would you rather be, on a tiger shoot or here?
No, I would. Profoundly difficult and unpleasant as it did, I would not be any other place. This is a fundamental change for the service. I believe I must see that through. So no, obviously profound regrets about the tragedy to Stephen and how his family were let down, but not something I must contemplate walking away from. Must see it through.
I think it's for him to examine his own self and think about his own position and to see whether or not he'll have the support of all the community. He just does not need the support of the white community. He needs to have that of the whole black community as well. And if he feels that his conscience will allow him to stay with that, then that is up to him.
At a meeting the night before, it was agreed to limit questions at the press conference, but the Commissioner still expected hostile challenges in the one-to-one interviews that would follow.
You're me and I'm Jerry Paxman. Commissioner, just say yes or no, are you accepting the judge's definition of institutional racism?
Insofar as it applies to the whole of society, yes.
It's not the judge has done a report on the whole of society.
No, he
He's done a report
has. He's used the whole of society, we would say. If you take the leak bit, it applies
Never
to
mind
all
the
of
rest of the society. I want to know here and now, this has been a huge sticking point. Are you as Commissioner signing up, what our viewers want to hear, are you signing up to the judge's definition of institutional racism?
Judge says it's everybody in society.
Aren't we supposed to do this to you, Commissioner?
No. I'll do it. Can you tell me if it doesn't work? I say the judge's definition. You be Jeremy, and I'll be you, sir. So I can do it for you, honestly. You go and ask me, and then hit me with it.
Just say yes to the judge's definition. You've got a definition. You've had several hours to study this. We understand. You read the report earlier in the week, so you've had a couple of days to think about it.
We've got two formulas for this if you want to do it.
Are you signing up to it?
The judge has given us a new definition. That's what we asked for. He's given us 4 reference points to apply for. He says it's unwitting, it's thoughtless, it's ignorant, and it's stereotyping.
So
we've got an answer to each of those 4 points.
So this is a humiliating U-turn.
It is not humiliating. The judge has replied to the question that I asked him. Please give us a definition. And by the way, although we accept this for us, we accept it for the Metropolitan Police, it applies to everybody in society. It's every institution. This is a dramatic change in the way this society will have to view racism.
I'll let you do it.
No, you won't.
Over the next 2 hours, the Commissioner will do some 10 separate interviews with the press, radio and television. Some are live, some pre-recorded. The makeshift studio set up in Scotland Yard leaves the Commissioner to face invisible interrogators.
The issue of institutional racism, the reason I provoked a debate on that is the old definitions weren't working. We needed a radical new definition. We've got it. It now applies to you, to the BBC, to journalism. And he has set a new challenge for you, for me, for all of society around this new and important definition of institutional racism. And this is a pivotal moment for this country. It's an opportunity to go forward in issues of equality, of race relations, of just human decency. John, yes, indeed. Yes. I have said that, I am saying that. We have changed, we have an enormous change programme which has been recognised by the judge, by the Home Secretary, by the Prime Minister. If we now have this vital issue where we have our Prime Minister, our Home Secretary, Parliament, commentators, all of us saying we must change, then my goodness, it will be an indictment on this country if we do not. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing to bring that change about, and I will use every day available to me as Commissioner to bring that change about.
To be honest, I really was worried about it. I didn't think it would go well. Although we'd put so much planning into it, I just didn't think that it could possibly go as well as it should. We were sitting here last night and we thought, we must have missed something. Must have gone wrong somewhere along the way. But I think it's going to be, the Commissioner is staying. He always performs well with his back against the wall. But between the three of him, you can tell I've been up since 5, can't you? Between him and John Grieve and Dennis O'Connor, I think they all did really well today. They kept their heads, they did their interviews, they said what they thought, and they said it from the heart.
Dave Betts. On our way.
The day has gone very much according to expectations. If anything, I guess a slightly more muted sense of sadness. I guess everyone realised the enormous tragedy involved for Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence, and I think from the Prime Minister down there was a
an appropriate tone set for the day. There are those great moments almost by accident. And, you know, this one, the tragedy of one good young man being brutally murdered in that way. There we are, almost 6 years on, with the Prime Minister leading on these issues.
In an effort to show the black community that it's listening to them, the Met has set up a lay advisory panel that includes some of its fiercest critics. Meeting a week after the report, community activist Lee Jasper proposed that the group call on the Commissioner to resign.
My proposition is very clear and simple. I think this is a momentous report. It is staggering in the level of incompetence that is outlined. I have to, as a representative of my community, express the black and white community's view as it has been communicated to me up and down the country and right throughout London, that the normal standards of probity, integrity and responsibility should apply, and they should apply to Sir Paul Condon in this case.
I certainly am yet to be persuaded that Condon's head is going to move the debate forward.
I think that if any of us had been Commissioner, if I had been Commissioner, I hope and believe I would have seen that the right thing to do now would have been to resign.
He is personally carrying the message about changing this organisation for good. That's his agenda. There isn't another agenda for 10 months. The Commissioner did not defend the indefendable, as far as I can see. What he said we had racists and a problem was much more than bad apples, and the reason why he thought it was worthwhile raising the issue about institutional racism is because if it is to be applied, we need to know how it is to be measured so that we know we can recognise progress. Now that may seem mundane, but if you want to move an organisation on, then you've got to know what movement looks like. Otherwise, when you want to monitor things, you never know when you've arrived anywhere.
Given that Paul Condon heads this force, I think that's where the buck's got to stop. There is nobody else. There are no officers that are going to be brought to question for it. There is nobody else that can take responsibility.
Those in favour of the motion? Those against?
14.
Abstentions?
The Met's efforts to combat racism have been filmed over the past 6 months. They will be screened on Channel 4 later in the spring.
Vote is 9-4, against 14, abstentions 9. The vote is therefore lost, but I think in any event that the Commissioner needs to be told that this discussion took place and that we will be monitoring the progress that he has committed himself to most publicly from this advisory group.